Last week, all the lower end rookies of Anthony Davis jumped 2 to 3 times in price, while we saw the PSA 10 of the Prizm continue to drop. His hoops, brilliance, and panini are all usually between $15 to $20, maybe sometimes pick them up for $10 to $12, and they went up big time, selling for around $40 as of last week. The PSA 10 on all of these cards were also selling for $350 to $450 last week. These could have bottomed out after the title and the 4 or 5 days of buying of Anthony Davis cards after that. I haven't checked yet, but people went super hard on the low end for AD, and the Prizm continued to drop. What's going on, guys? Carson Cruz, and I'm here to talk to you about the reverse effect. The Prizm prices that start rising and the other rookies drop when a player has somewhat a stable market. I'll explain what I mean by stable in depth by starting with Anthony Davis, a guy you probably think everything should be going up. It probably will as we get closer into next season, but why not now? Let's get into it. Anytime the Prizm moves up or down, the other rookie cards will move with it. The Prizm goes down, the others go up. The Prizm goes up, the others go down. It's actually reverse of what you would think. But I've been doing this for about 2 months now, and rarely do I actually buy the Prizms. I just watch, and when everyone's buying the Prizm, I buy the others. And when the Prizm goes down, I sell the others. It's like every player has a pool of how much money is being spent on his cards. When the money is being flung at the high-end cards or the more highly priced cards like the Prizm, the low-end, lower-priced stuff suffers. And when the money is being flung at the lower-end cards, the Prizm suffers. An event like winning the championship, big investors had already bought in and were cashing out. Why you saw the price being brought down with every single Anthony Davis Prizm sale. They were competing against each other to get the cards moved, and just as new Anthony Davis market share was being created by the Lakers winning the championship, the old was depleted in the guys selling him at what they thought might be the peak. When the Lakers won the ship, everyone that hadn't bought in rushed to pick up the cheap stuff, which then increased those prices because the inventory was down. Bringing balance back between those and the Prizm price, it shrinked the gap as a whole. Once these reach a certain level, the lower end stuff, or seem pricey, like buying a hoops card for $450, the Prizm will start to rise again. When big time investors see that gap has narrowed that much to that little between the hoops and the Prizm rookie card, look for his Prizm to start rising back up, which I think will be soon, sometime between now and the beginning of next season. I know you have to be confused at this, at least on a little bit so far. I know I was trying to explain this on the comment section of my boy Northeast Ohio's video, this guy, and he just thought, an increase in the Prizm price should bring the others up. And it eventually does, because the Prizm, once people think the Prizm's too high, then they start buying the other stuff, or you got guys like me who are buying up all the other ones when people are buying the Prizm. Imagine just the Anthony Davis market as a whole. The whole entire market has $10 to spend. This is a made-up number, but there's $10 being spent on Anthony Davis cards any given day. If buyers spend $8 of that $10, or like 80%, on Prizm cards, and the demand goes up for Prizm cards, then they only have $2 left to spend on all other brands. So if the Hoops wants to sell any given day, and there's been 80% of the Anthony Davis card money going towards Prizm, then the Hoops has to accept lower offers or lower the price in order to get an offer. If buyers are spending $8 in reverse, if buyers are spending $8 on brands like Hoops, Brilliant, Select, etc., demand drives those prices up as the inventory is depleted, and then there's only like $2 or 20% left of the Anthony Davis money to spend on the obvious market dominant card. Judging by the price, $2 is not enough to go around here, so the Prizm price starts to plummet heavily. Here's an example or two of how all AD cards, or anyone's for that example, or for that matter, could go up. 1. AD joins the Lakers to fight for a title, one more title for LeBron. The boom immediately, and total market share increases for LeBron's partner in crime, Anthony Davis. We saw that. Anthony Davis card prices went back up heavily, and obviously they went back up because the entire market share, new investors and new buyers were introduced into the market, but also because, at the beginning of last year, people were buying AD because, well, he was probably going to get his first title. He was joining LeBron. Number two, the same excitement, higher expectation people. So maybe leading into year two, people think AD could become the alpha of the Lakers, and this time AD leads them to the title, outright, undisputedly winning the Finals MVP, or LeBron's hurt and the Lakers still win it. So this would cause an increase in all of Anthony Davis's cards at the same time. Between now and this time next year, this is one way they could increase. If there were a lot of people that thought, or new people too, that thought Anthony Davis was going to be the alpha of his team next year, or, prove his dominance. Very possible scenario, but I mean, for a big jump in price, he clearly has to be that dude for the Lakers. These jumps could also be gradual as the season starts and up and down. It'd be hard to tell. And, you can see them as the playoffs near, a little bump, and then the weeks leading up to the championship event, another bump. But sometime in there, we'll also start to see it fall. Even though he's increasing his market share, at some point, buyers leave the arena. They just give up on him. And so another event has to take place to continue the overall bump of his cards. It's like we'll see this small jump in the beginning of the year for sure. The rest are up to AD and how he performs on the court and in real life. I think the Prizm will definitely recover, and the lower end won't drop down to where it was before, minimizing the gap or the price difference between the Prizm and the other AD rookies heading into the season. That's kind of what I see. 3, and this is the last case for Anthony Davis. The new alpha is born. Anthony Davis outperforms LeBron and wins the MVP, like I was saying. Then we see a major increase in the total amount of market share for Anthony Davis as a whole compared to the rest of the NBA players. Less people getting out of Anthony Davis cards and into something else. And while that's happening, more people joining the Anthony Davis bandwagon. That $10 we talked about earlier becomes $20 or $40, depending on how big of a historical event it is. Then, in this case, all of his cards will increase in price together and probably stay there until further notice, or will stay there until further notice. But since AD was the Robin to LeBron's Batman this year, his market share didn't really increase that much, at least of yet. So people bought the cheaper stuff, myself included. I snagged a hoops for $20. I thought it had, a great potential to go up, and it would look good for grading. And since the money was going in, not just mine, but most people's money was going in causing these hoops prices to increase, there was less money to be spent on the Prizms for AD buyers, and those Prizm sellers were selling, causing the price to drag down themselves, and it suffered as a whole. This notifies me that just winning a championship will not increase your overall market share for a player. It's kind of crazy. I really thought that, a championship, until I looked at this, more in depthly, recently, I thought winning a championship was going to be a big deal. It really isn't. It will not increase your market share just having a championship ring. It only lets in new low-level investors, creates an easy exit for the guys that bought in sooner or ready to move on to greener pastures, and a place to get in for guys that, just want to speculate on a lot of players. I really hope this video and my explanation of this makes it easier to understand. Here's some examples of market share rise and falls from the past year to help you relate. In a video today, my boy Northeast Ohio, be sure and go subscribe to his channel, said the AD Prizm prices dropped to once they drop to a price, it may already be there now, I'm not sure, that it's a no-brainer to pick them up. Then people start to buy it again, and that takes focus and money being spent towards the cards like the hoops. So the hoops will then start dropping in price, and as not as many people are wanting it because the price got too close to the Prizm. And as it starts to creep back down in price, fewer buyers spending money on it, while the Prizm inventory starts to get depleted, the price will then go back up. Things players could do to increase the market share and cause all their card prices to rise. Here's some real-life examples from this past year. Clearly show you're the alpha on your team and the reason you're competing for a championship. Then back that up with a deep run in the playoffs. We've seen Trae Young prices not keep track with Luka because, his team is suffering. And, yeah, I mean, dude, you got to get to the playoffs in order to sustain long-term pricing, stabilization. I don't know what to say. Look at James Harden's rookie card prices. Russell Westbrook, dudes that don't make deep playoff runs but are triple-double machines. That really doesn't translate. And if Trae Young doesn't get his team on, at least winning, his prices are going to take a huge hit. While everyone's saying you should buy Trae Young now, yeah, you should if you think that Trae Young is going to take his team to the playoffs this year. 30 points a game does not translate into high rookie card prices. Bradley Beal is cheap. Kemba Walker is cheap. John Wall is cheap. Yeah, it's just players are cheap unless they compete and win championships. Trust me. We've seen Kawhi's all right. So listen, and next one. We've seen Kawhi's cards go way up this year and now way back down. The reason for his downturn is expectations were so high, and Jamal Murray took some of his market share by beating his ass down in the playoffs. As well as that, LeBron, who probably a lot of the big money spenders over the years that drove Kawhi's prices up were guys that had sold LeBron at some point because, here's the guy, one of the only other guys winning titles, beating LeBron, winning MVP, then going to the Raptors, winning a title there. And, if in the past few years, Kawhi has asserted himself as an alpha in this league. And a lot of people probably hopped on Kawhi thinking he would lead the Clippers to a title in year one, or at least beating LeBron in the Western Conference Finals. When that didn't happen, he not only lost those guys to Murray, but also some of those guys went back to LeBron or just left Kawhi in general. Kawhi's prices on everything took a hit. At some point, the Prizm will bounce back, and an event like the offseason, free agency, or them adding someone in the draft, or the season starting will cause it to come back up a little, and then the cycle of push and pull between the other rookie cards and his Prizms will start all over again. Next up, we got Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard was averaging over 40 points a game in the bubble. His market share, card prices, and money being spent on them went through the roof, but when he got 4-1 KO'd by the Lakers in the first round, his cards as a whole took one of the biggest nosedives in recent history. I bought a Silver Hollow My House Damian Lillard for $5 after shipping back at the beginning of the bubble, thinking it was a great deal. I'll sell that easily for double. As of the other day, I removed the listing because no one would even buy it at $5. Next up, we have Donovan Mitchell. A 57-point game, the third most in playoff history by a single player, caused his Prizm base raw to jump from $60 all the way up to $150. Mitchell gets beat by Murray in that series when he was up 3-1, and you could seriously pick up that card 2 weeks ago or for the next 2 or 3 weeks after that for $40 to $45 most days. As people start to forget this and people remember the game more than him losing the series, his market share will recover, his Prizm will recover, all of his other cards will recover. But another great example how guys' market share can increase and decrease. The last person that I'm going to talk about, well, one of the last, that I've been watching closely on their market share is Jason Tatum, the third-year player that gets closer and closer to leading his team to his first NBA Finals again this year. Let me just improvise this real quick here. Go look at so right now I would say the top two non-rookie market share is between Luka Doncic and LeBron James, with LeBron James edging him out because, he went on to do what he did. Luka Doncic will inch closer back to him as year two moves on if he plays great. And, but the price difference on those two are not very huge for Luka to be able to take the leap that Tatum can take. And I'm not really necessarily just always looking at the rookie cards on this, but you can look at the Prizm parallels of brands like Prizm and the Prizm parallels of Tatum. You can pick those up for so cheap, the select ones. There's all types of high price second-year cards like Contenders Optic Prizms. Where the market share of LeBron and Luka is 10 times what it is of Tatum. And let's get into this and figure out why Tatum is the guy I'm looking at for the next year. I would really pay close attention to him. And I would pick up most of his first and second year cards, even third year cards that you can afford, if you believe he will get the Celtics to the finals next year. Not just win, just get them to the finals. If Tatum can get the Celtics to the finals next year and Luka and Zion are already eliminated, he will see the largest market share increase, or maybe even bring more money into the hobby, just because we haven't seen that happen in the hobby, where a third to fourth year player has led his team to a finals championship, where he gets sole credit for doing it, being the true alpha on the team. Kawhi would have been the last one, but he doesn't get sole credit for that first championship, even though he got the MVP, because that was Pop and the trio of Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili's final title together. Curry was in his 5th season when they won, and we all know where that's gone with his prices. Even though cards were terrible in his rookie year, and Durant joining the Warriors kind of slowed down his ascent. And before that, Durant in 11-12, and a loss to LeBron in the Heat, and then LeBron in 06-07. If Tatum can get the Celtics there next year, that will be on the level of LeBron James. Dude, I'm just stopping right here on this and thinking about Shaq and Penny and what their card prices did back in the 90s when I was a kid collecting, when they got, I think they went to the final. They went deep in the playoffs once or twice. And, dude, Penny's still super collectible there because it happened when he was a young player. Anyway, let's get back to it. If Tatum can get the Celtics there next year, that will be on the level of LeBron. If he so happens to meet LeBron or Luka there, we're talking a huge market share chunk headed Tatum's way. Guys, 23-year-olds don't lead their teams as the alpha to NBA titles. Young Kobe Bryant was not the alpha on his team that won 3 straight in the early 2000s. It was Shaq. I do love Kobe, and however, Kobe coming back and winning 2 without Shaq, and almost a third, is why he's kind of the third, most sought-after player in the hobby behind LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Shaq doesn't really get the sole credit for those titles either, and I don't really know how this works, but also, people just don't really dig big man collecting basketball cards as much as they do guards and the forwards. It just doesn't happen. Sorry, Shaq. Go ask Tim Duncan how he feels. 5 rings and still no appeal in the basketball card market or the hobby. When we're talking market share, or we're talking taking market share, the best recent example of this, not just their rookie cards, but every card to take that leap, is Mahomes defeating Brady in Week 14 last year on his way to winning the Super Bowl. Sure, you've probably been explaining this before, but let me explain it to you this way. This could have been even crazier had it been the AFC Championship game, but possibly not. Because sometimes, if not most of the time, the events leading up to the big event or big game are where we see the most increases. Mahomes is on the rise coming into the late season off of a great year, needing a win, topped by a loss from another team in his division to win the AFC West. He beat Brady that game. Brady at the end of the regular season last year, and most of the money or price increases we saw were between that day and the Super Bowl championship. Shortly after the Super Bowl, we saw his card level off and even the high end decrease a little. However, it was a push and pull, and the Prizm or the other cards, we saw Mahomes overtake Brady's market share cap as the new alpha of the NFL from that point forward. Sure, you've probably heard the Prizm dropped after the Super Bowl. That was actually the highest it had ever been, but Mahomes, now in his 4th season, has pushed Brady aside as the best base card to pull in any set, even the ones that have featured Brady in his new Bucks outfit. An event most thought might give Brady back some of his market share on the lower end cards, or at least gain some elsewhere. Even with Brady coming out hot, we didn't really see his total market share increase, only his highest of high end stuff. But Brady is nearing the end of his career, and besides Mahomes becoming the current base card and Prizm Parallel Insert Alpha, there's really not much that can or will be done to mess with the elite cards of Brady's prices, or any cards for that matter. Brady remains the alpha for all veteran cards, inserts, parallels from 2000 to 2017. And Mahomes is the new alpha moving forward. Even if Mahomes loses his status of alpha and Brady is still in the league, Brady will probably never get that position back. Whoever takes it from Mahomes will, unless, I guess that is Brady, but that would be pretty tough at this point. Like I said, guys that have been in the league for 20 years don't tend to move much on the bar. This doesn't include the rookie cards, by the way, in these sets or the inserts. It's just every other card in the set that comes out. If Mahomes has a card or in the set or the inserts, then Mahomes' card is going to be valued higher comparatively, and to any other rookie card besides one or two of them even. And now back to Tatum, and the guy I've seen is having the best chance currently to make a huge leap like that. Of course, there's Luka and Zion, but they are young, and Luka's going to have to start next year making runs in the playoffs to take this next step. Zion just needs to play, and since their prices are both already high across the board, we need to see them prove it moving forward for quite some time before anything crazy is probably going to happen with the prices. I'm not saying go buy every Jason Tatum card out there or even spend more than you have slotted for him or someone else, or sell everyone and go all in on him. But I personally will be looking into Tatum and his cards more and more as we get closer to the season. I actually think he might be able to do it. For instance, guys who you think might be in similar situations as Tatum but really aren't, Bam or Hero, Jimmy Butler would have to decline in so much in order for them to show alpha status on that team. Brandon Ingram, who won Most Improved Player last year. Zion would have to be hurt most of the year or just play like crap and get moved to the bench and dominate. Luka and Zion are all candidates to take chunks of market share with deep runs, but Tatum is in the prime example. For example, if Giannis decides to stay with the Bucks and doesn't win, look for him to take a huge chunk of Giannis's market share, or even a huge back shot up for Giannis if he wins the title. Tatum or whoever else takes Giannis down this next year will probably cause an even bigger dip in Giannis prices than we saw this year. Either way, that's kind of a different, unique look at the markets you won't get anywhere else. Tatum has been, slowly inching towards the finals, and he got to the conference finals, and I think he's going to get to the finals next year. And lo and behold, he doesn't. You probably won't lose much there if unless you stay in it and he suffers in the future. But I sold real estate for 15 years prior to becoming a sports card investor in all markets. Basically, can be the same, be related. In real estate, our two main markets that we saw competition in were resale and new construction. Kind of comparing the market share of those to each players. Those always competed with each other. When new construction was selling and the price was going up, resale would suffer and the price would drop when the new construction rose to a price that was too much to pay. When you could get a resale for so much less, then the resale started moving and the prices going up, and vice versa, bringing the new constructions down. It really felt good writing this all out. It's a little more in depth, I guess, than just watching the prism on a graph, but it's why when people see the prism increasing by so much, they go buy the other cards, because once people can't afford the prism or it's increased to a level that no one wants to buy it, then the decline down starts. The money starts being spent on other cards, raising those values until the gap is narrowed between them, and ultimately repeating itself until there's a change in market share for that player, good or bad. Just go look at D-Wade's card prices. The man has 3 titles, but single-handedly gets credit for none of those, gaining very little market share each time. Title 1 was with him and Shaq. Title 2 and 3 were with LeBron. LeBron just passed D-Wade finally in total numbers of titles last week, yet D-Wade's Topps Chrome card drops to under $100, where LeBron's raw Chrome card is 5 times higher in price. Take you about $2,500 to buy just a basic one without even good centering. But anyway, that's the video for today. If you like this video and want to see more stuff like this, hit that like, comment, subscribe button. It's Carson Cruz. Peace.